How does a prince, born into luxury and privilege, become one of the greatest spiritual teachers in human history? How does a life surrounded by wealth and comfort lead to a path that transforms the understanding of existence for millions of people across centuries? In this video, we embark on a journey to uncover the extraordinary life of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha, the awakened one. His story is not just one of personal transformation. It is a timeless narrative of courage, compassion, and an unrelenting quest for truth. Siddhartha's life begins in the splendor of a royal palace, where he is shielded from the realities of human suffering. Yet, even within this bubble of luxury, his destiny cannot be contained. His encounters with the world outside the palace awaken within him a profound sense of compassion and a determination to understand the nature of suffering. This video will explore his journey in detail, from his princely upbringing, through his decision to renounce worldly life, to his years of spiritual seeking and eventual enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. We will witness how Siddhartha's quest for truth and liberation not only transformed his own life, but also laid the foundation for Buddhism. This is a path that continues to guide millions toward peace and understanding. Through this exploration, you will gain insights into Siddhartha's extraordinary choices and the profound wisdom he discovered. His life reminds us that no matter where we begin, it is our determination, reflection, and compassion that define our journey. Join me as we delve into the remarkable story of Siddhartha Gautama, a journey that begins with privilege and ends with enlightenment. This is the story of a prince who became the Buddha. His teachings continue to illuminate the path for humanity. Early life of Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha Gautama was born over 2,500 years ago in a small kingdom located in what is now Nepal. His birth was surrounded by extraordinary events and prophecies that foretold his unique destiny. According to tradition, his mother, Queen Maya, had a dream before his birth. She saw the white elephant descending from the heavens. This was seen as a sign of an auspicious and extraordinary child. When Siddhartha was born, sages were invited to interpret his future. They predicted that he would either become a great king, who would rule the world, or a spiritual teacher, who would bring liberation to countless beings. His father, King Suddhodana, was determined to steer him toward the first path. He wanted Siddhartha to become a powerful ruler, and to prevent him from even considering the spiritual life. To achieve this, Siddhartha's father created a life of unparalleled luxury. Within the palace walls, the young prince was surrounded by beauty, wealth, and comfort. He was given the best education. He was trained in the arts of war and governance. He was provided with everything a future king might need. But along with these privileges came an unusual restriction. Siddhartha was carefully shielded from the realities of the world outside the palace. His father ordered that he should never see anything unpleasant. He was to see no signs of sickness, old age, or death. He was also to have no exposure to people who renounced worldly life. In search of spiritual truth, the king believed that if Siddhartha remained blissfully ignorant of suffering, he would have no reason to leave his royal duties behind. For many years, this strategy seemed to work. Siddhartha grew into a handsome, skilled, and intelligent young man. He married a beautiful princess named Yasodhara. Together, they had a son named Rahula. On the surface, it seemed that Siddhartha's life was perfect. He had everything one could wish for. But beneath this veneer of perfection, Siddhartha felt a growing sense of restlessness. Despite all the pleasures and privileges around him, he began to sense that something was missing. There was a question, unspoken yet persistent, that stirred deep within him. Is this all there is to life? This quiet discontent was the seed of his spiritual journey, though he did not yet know it. Siddhartha's sheltered life was about to change forever. Events were unfolding that would open his eyes to the realities of human existence. These events would set him on a path that would lead to enlightenment. In the next section, we will follow Siddhartha as he steps outside the palace walls for the first time. We will witness the profound truths he encounters. These truths would awaken his compassion and spark his quest to understand the nature of life and suffering. The foresights and the awakening of compassion. Siddhartha Gautama's life changed forever the day he ventured beyond the palace walls. Until this point, his father's efforts to shield him from the realities of the world had been successful. But Siddhartha's curiosity and inner restlessness drove him to see what lay outside the confines of his royal life. During these excursions, Siddhartha encountered what are now known as the foresights. These experiences would awaken his compassion and spark his spiritual journey. The first sight was an old man. Siddhartha had never seen aging before. He was struck by the frailty and weariness of the man, who struggled to walk and carried the visible marks of time on his body. Siddhartha turned to his charioteer and asked, "What is this?" The charioteer explained that aging is an inevitable part of life. It is something that everyone, including Siddhartha himself, would one day experience. This realization deeply unsettled Siddhartha. It planted the first seeds of awareness about life's impermanence. The second sight was a sick person. Siddhartha saw someone writhing in pain, suffering from illness. Again, this was something he had never encountered before. He asked the charioteer, "What has happened to this person?" The charioteer explained that sickness is a natural part of life. No one is immune to it. Siddhartha felt a deep sense of compassion for the suffering he witnessed. He began to wonder why such pain existed. The third sight was a corpse, being carried to a cremation ground. For the first time, Siddhartha saw death. He realized it was the end of life that no one can escape. This sight shook him to his core. He understood that no matter how much wealth or power one has, everyone is subject to the same fate: aging, sickness, and eventually death. The fourth and final sight was a wandering ascetic. Unlike the previous sights, which were filled with suffering and sorrow, this man seemed serene and content, clothed simply and carrying only a begging bowl. The ascetic radiated a sense of calm that stood in stark contrast to the suffering Siddhartha had just witnessed. When Siddhartha asked about this man, the charioteer explained that he had renounced worldly pleasures to seek truth and liberation. This last sight left a profound impression on Siddhartha. He saw in the ascetic a path of hope. He glimpsed the possibility to transcend the suffering that seemed so inherent in life. For the first time, he understood that there might be a way to overcome the pain of existence. These foresights awakened Siddhartha's compassion. They ignited a burning desire to seek answers. Why do we age, become ill, and die? Is there a way to escape this endless cycle of suffering? These questions consumed him. He realized that the life of luxury he had been living could no longer satisfy him. The foresights marked the beginning of Siddhartha's transformation. He was no longer content to live as a prince in the palace, indulging in fleeting pleasures while the world outside was filled with suffering. Instead, he felt a deep calling to find the truth. He wanted to discover a path that could bring liberation, not just for himself, but for all beings. In the next section, we will follow Siddhartha as he makes the most courageous decision of his life. He leaves behind his family, his wealth, and his position as a prince, to embark on a journey of spiritual discovery. This moment, known as the Great Renunciation, is one of the most defining events in his extraordinary story. The Great Renunciation. Siddhartha Gautama could no longer ignore the profound truths he had encountered during his journeys outside the palace walls. The four sights, aging, sickness, death, and the serene ascetic, had awakened something within him. He realized that the comforts of palace life could not shield him from the inevitable suffering of existence. He knew he had to seek answers, not just for himself, but for all who suffered. But this decision was not an easy one. Siddhartha had everything the world could offer: wealth, power, a loving wife, and a newborn son. Leaving it all behind meant not only renouncing his own comforts, but also breaking the hearts of those who depended on him. He was a husband, a father, and a prince destined to rule. Yet, the pull of his spiritual quest was stronger than any earthly attachment. One night, under the cover of darkness, Siddhartha made the most courageous and selfless decision of his life. He quietly said goodbye to his sleeping wife, Yasodhara, and his infant son, Rahula. He gazed at them with deep love, knowing that his departure was not a rejection of them, but a sacrifice for a higher purpose. It was a journey to find the truth that could benefit all beings. Accompanied by his loyal charioteer, Channa, Siddhartha rode to the edge of the kingdom. There, he removed his royal jewelry, discarded his fine garments, and exchanged them for the simple robes of an ascetic. With this act, he symbolically left behind his identity as a prince and embraced the life of a seeker. This moment, known as the Great Renunciation, marked the beginning of Siddhartha's spiritual journey. The renunciation was not an escape. It was an act of profound courage. Siddhartha understood that true freedom could not be found in wealth or power. To uncover the answers to life's greatest questions, why do we suffer? Is there a way to transcend suffering? He had to let go of everything that tied him to the material world. For the first time in his life, Siddhartha was alone. There were no palace walls to protect him. There were no servants to attend to his needs. Yet, he felt a sense of liberation and purpose he had never known before. Stripped of his titles and possessions, he was free to dedicate himself entirely to the pursuit of truth. Siddhartha began his journey by seeking out the wisest teachers of his time. He studied their philosophies and mastered their techniques, from meditation to extreme asceticism. Yet, despite his dedication and discipline, he found that these methods did not lead to the answers he sought. This chapter of Siddhartha's life reminds us of the power of letting go. It takes immense courage to step away from comfort and security, to face the unknown in pursuit of something greater. The Great Renunciation is a testament to Siddhartha's unwavering determination and his profound compassion for all beings. In the next section, we will follow Siddhartha through the years of intense asceticism. These years would test his limits and ultimately lead him to a profound realization, the middle way. This pivotal insight would shape his path to enlightenment and become one of the core teachings of Buddhism. Years of asceticism and the discovery of the middle way. After leaving his royal life behind, Siddhartha Gautama embarked on a journey of intense spiritual seeking, guided by his determination to understand the nature of suffering and to find a way beyond it. He sought out the most respected spiritual teachers of his time. These teachers introduced him to practices of deep meditation and profound self-discipline. Siddhartha quickly mastered their teachings. But while these practices brought temporary states of calm and focus, Siddhartha felt they didn't lead to the ultimate liberation he sought. Craving deeper answers, he decided to push the boundaries of his quest even further. He joined a group of ascetics who believed that extreme self-denial was the path to enlightenment. For 6 years, Siddhartha subjected himself to harsh ascetic practices. He reduced his food intake to almost nothing, surviving on a single grain of rice or a few seeds each day. He exposed his body to the elements, endured intense physical pain, and deprived himself of sleep. His body grew emaciated, and he teetered on the edge of death. Yet, despite his unwavering efforts, enlightenment remained out of reach. One day, Siddhartha reached a critical realization. He understood that extreme self-denial, just like indulgence in worldly pleasures, was not the answer. Both paths, the life of luxury he had left behind and the severe austerities he had embraced, were rooted in attachment. Whether to comfort or to suffering, neither led to true freedom. It was in this moment of clarity that Siddhartha discovered what would become one of Buddhism's most essential teachings, the middle way. The middle way is a path of balance, avoiding the extremes of indulgence and self-mortification. It recognizes that the body and mind are tools for spiritual growth and should be cared for, not tortured or neglected. This realization marked a turning point in Siddhartha's journey. He ended his extreme ascetic practices, nourishing his body with food and preparing his mind for the meditation that would soon lead to his enlightenment. This shift was not without criticism. The other ascetics, seeing Siddhartha eat and restore his strength, accused him of abandoning the spiritual path. But Siddhartha knew that balance, not extremes, was the key to liberation. The discovery of the middle way is a powerful reminder That wisdom often lies in balance. In our own lives, we may face the temptation to swing between extremes, whether in our habits, our emotions, or our relationships. Siddhartha's insight teaches us to seek harmony, to honor both the needs of the body and the aspirations of the spirit. In the next section, we will witness the culmination of Siddhartha's journey, the night he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, overcoming the final obstacles to enlightenment. This is the moment when Siddhartha transcended suffering and became the Buddha, the awakened one. Enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. After 6 years of seeking and hardship, Siddhartha Gautama had come to a profound realization. Neither indulgence in luxury nor extreme self-denial could lead to liberation. With renewed clarity, he set out to meditate deeply and discover the truth that would end all suffering. Siddhartha made his way to a quiet spot near the town of Bodh Gaya, where a large fig tree, now known as the Bodhi tree, stood. There, he resolved to sit in meditation until he achieved enlightenment. No matter how long it took or what challenges arose, his determination was unwavering. As he meditated through the night, Siddhartha faced his final obstacles. These challenges came in the form of Mara, the embodiment of fear, desire, and delusion. Mara appeared to him with a host of temptations, attempting to distract him from his goal. First, Mara sent visions of desire, beautiful forms meant to entice Siddhartha and pull him back toward worldly pleasures. But Siddhartha remained steadfast, unmoved by these illusions. Next, Mara tried to instill fear. He sent storms, darkness, and terrifying images to frighten Siddhartha and shake his resolve. But Siddhartha, calm and centered, faced these fears with courage, recognizing them as fleeting and powerless against his determination. Finally, Mara tried to plant seeds of doubt. "Who are you to seek enlightenment?" Mara asked. "What right do you have to claim such wisdom?" In response, Siddhartha reached down and touched the earth with his right hand, calling the earth itself to bear witness to his countless lifetimes of effort and virtue. The earth thundered in affirmation, and Mara's doubts dissolved into nothingness. With Mara defeated, Siddhartha's mind became utterly still, clear, and luminous. As dawn broke, he entered into a state of profound understanding. He saw the nature of existence with perfect clarity, realizing the truths of suffering, its causes, and the path to liberation. In that moment, Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha, the awakened one. The Buddha's enlightenment was not just a personal triumph. It was a revelation that offered a path to freedom for all beings. He understood that suffering is an inherent part of life, caused by craving and attachment, but that it can be overcome by following a path of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha also realized the interconnectedness of all things and the impermanence of life. He saw the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara, and the way to break free from it through awakening. The Buddha's enlightenment is often described as the ultimate realization of peace, compassion, and wisdom. It was not an escape from the world, but a profound engagement with its truths. It was a state of being that transcends suffering, while embracing the realities of existence. This moment under the Bodhi tree became the foundation for all of Buddhism. The Buddha's insights, known as the Dharma, would guide millions of people across centuries and continents, offering a path to inner peace and spiritual freedom. In the next section, we will follow the Buddha as he begins to share his enlightenment with others. From his first teachings at Deer Park to the establishment of the Sangha, the Buddha's mission to spread the Dharma would change the course of history forever. The Buddha's first teachings and the establishment of the Sangha. After achieving enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha Gautama, now the Buddha, sat in deep contemplation for several weeks. He reflected on the profound truths he had realized and the path he had discovered. Though he felt the teachings were subtle and difficult to convey, his compassion for all beings compelled him to share his insights. The Buddha began his journey to teach others, eventually arriving at a place near the city of Varanasi called Deer Park. There, he met 5 ascetics, who had once been his companions during his years of extreme self-denial. Initially, they were skeptical. They believed that Siddhartha had abandoned the true path when he left asceticism behind. However, they were struck by his radiant presence and clarity, and they listened as he began to speak. The Buddha's first discourse, known as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, or setting the wheel of Dharma in motion, introduced the essence of his enlightenment. In this teaching, he explained the Four Noble Truths. First, the truth of suffering, dukkha. Life is inherently unsatisfactory, marked by suffering and impermanence. Second, the truth of the cause of suffering, samudaya. Suffering arises from craving and attachment. Third, the truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha. It is possible to end suffering by letting go of craving. Fourth, the truth of the path, magga. The way to liberation is the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide to living a life of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. This first teaching laid the foundation for the Dharma, the Buddha's body of teachings, which continues to guide millions of people to this day. The five ascetics were deeply moved by the Buddha's words. One by one, they embraced his teachings and became the first members of the Sangha. The Sangha is the community of monks and nuns, dedicated to following and spreading the Dharma. This marked the beginning of a movement that would grow far beyond the borders of India, transforming lives and cultures across the world. The Sangha was not just a group of renunciants. It was a model of inclusivity and compassion. People from all walks of life, rich and poor, men and women, kings and commoners, were welcome to join the Buddha's community if they were committed to the path of awakening. As the Sangha grew, the Buddha continued to teach tirelessly. He traveled from village to village, sharing the Dharma with anyone who was willing to listen. His message was universal, transcending caste, gender, and social status. The Buddha's emphasis on compassion and wisdom made his teachings accessible to all, offering hope and a path to liberation. The establishment of the Sangha ensured that the Buddha's teachings would be preserved and passed down through generations. The community became the heart of the Buddhist tradition, providing support and guidance to those seeking enlightenment. In the next section, we will reflect on the legacy of the Buddha's journey. We will examine the timeless relevance of his life and teachings. His story is not just an ancient narrative, but a profound source of inspiration for how we can approach life's challenges and find meaning in our own journeys. Conclusion: the timeless legacy of the Buddha's journey. The Life of Siddhartha Gautama, From Prince to Enlightened Teacher, is a story that transcends time and culture. It is a journey of courage, compassion, and an unrelenting quest for truth, a journey that laid the foundation for one of the most influential spiritual traditions in history. The Buddhist teachings remind us that suffering is a universal experience, but it is not inevitable. Through wisdom, mindfulness, and ethical living, we can transcend suffering and find peace. His journey shows us that enlightenment is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is a path open to anyone willing to walk it with sincerity and dedication. Siddhartha's transformation from a privileged prince to the Buddha is not just a story of personal liberation. It is a beacon of hope for all beings. It teaches us that no matter where we begin, it is our choices, our determination, and our compassion that define our journey. Today, the Buddha's legacy continues to inspire millions. His teachings, preserved through the Sangha and shared across generations, offer timeless wisdom that remains deeply relevant. In a world often filled with noise, distraction, and suffering, the path he discovered over 2,500 years ago serves as a guide to finding balance, clarity, and meaning. As we conclude this video, let us reflect on the lessons from Siddhartha's life: the courage to face life's truths, the compassion to seek the well-being of all beings, and the wisdom to walk the middle way. In our next video, we'll dive deeper into the core teachings of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. These are the principles that form the heart of the Buddha's enlightenment and provide practical tools for transforming our lives. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of the Buddha. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Universal Understanding. For more explorations into Buddhist wisdom, may you continue to walk your path with mindfulness, compassion, and peace.